Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I'm one of your hosts, Sami Kinnison, here with Angela Belford. Today, we are going to be talking about a new concept that we recently learned about that, honestly, Angela and I have just been geeking out over since we learned about this, and we can't not talk about it. And so,
Well, what's funny is you say it's a new concept.
okay, I meant new to us. We recently
Yes.
became aware
It
of the
came into
concept.
our awareness.
Yes, came into our awareness. Yeah, you're absolutely right, though. It is not new if this was something written about by Socrates, Aristotle, a little bit of Plato. Sure. It's not new, but you and I are not to toot our own horns, but fairly ingrained in learning about things and about psychology and about how our brains work and different concepts related to this. So it is interesting.
I've written 2 books about this.
Exactly. You've written 2 books about this. Between the two of us, we have read countless books in kind of that self-help type category. And to have a concept and a word that neither of us have heard of before, that's a big deal for me.
Very cool.
I feel excited. Cool. It also sort of the idea every now and again, this might sound dumb, but there is a part where it's like, oh, am I going to learn too much that I'm going to get bored? There's not going to be anything else left to learn. And I just love the reminders that never, literally never, you will never learn everything. And you always could keep learning forever and ever. And that's awesome.
I don't think it's dumb because I think it's a legitimate concern. When you have Solomon, lamenting in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. And I certainly, when I wrote my first book, was like, everybody's like, oh, it's good. And I'm like, there's nothing new in it. And then it's like, oh yeah, well, there's not actually going to be new stuff. It's not that there's not going to be new stuff. I mean, let's think about this. The MRI was created in the early 80s. I say this all the time, when I was in 2nd grade, we still thought that if you got a brain injury, your brain couldn't heal, that it was just fixed. And so when it comes to brain science, I don't know that we'll ever know all there is to know.
In addition, though, the MRI, and that's in the 80s and all of this neuroscience stuff that we're learning now, but this concept, to have concepts that last. And I think even that when science today sometimes is proving or is aligning with what people studied or wrote about or sort of practiced in ancient times, in BC times, and all of those things. That's so neat to see. They didn't have the MRI back then, and there are still some concepts that stand the test of time. That even there was a book I read that was called Breath, and it was the new science behind the lost art. And there was so much about it that it was talking about the things that people have been practicing for thousands of years. And now we are actually doing a research paper to show why it's working this way, to show that people who have been doing these things, it's not a new concept to breathe. And yet we can now say, this is why breathing is doing these things.
Yes. I say that all the time when people will be like, it'll be like, oh, there's this new study that's out that says that pork is bad for your heart. And I'm like, this has probably been 10 years ago, but I just started laughing. I go, hey, I think it's in the user manual. Check Leviticus, but I'm pretty sure we already knew this, which is a little bit of a different, thing, but still this idea. Let's talk about it. What's the word? What's the word we're talking about today? Get on it.
Yes.
Amy.
We are talking about Eudaimonia. EUDAIMONIA. If you want to see how it's spelled, it's going to be in the title of the podcast. You probably would have seen it already. Eudaimonia. The idea behind this, some people translate eudaimonia to mean happiness, and it's really too basic of a translation. There's not necessarily a single word English translation that we can have of this. It's a Greek word, and it is more than just being happy. It is about a life satisfaction. It is about a pursuit. It's an ongoing, it's not a destination. Socrates wrote that eudaimonia is the ultimate goal of life. That of all the things that Socrates said and all of the philosophers of the time, like this is what he prescribed to be the ultimate goal, was achieving eudaimonia. And that seems significant to like look at. Like, what do you mean? Somebody says this is the ultimate goal of life. Tell me more. What does that mean? Angela, what was your first impression when we were kind
Well,
of looking at
I would
this?
say that I love it because there's some guys, and I'm going to say their names wrong, Desi and Ryan in 2006, that wrote about eudaimonia. And they said that well-being is not an outcome or end state. It is a process of fulfilling or realizing one's true nature. That is fulfilling one's virtuous potential and living as one inherently intended to live. Like, that is so fantastic for me, because I feel like that is what the books that I write are really about. Like, I would say the first book is about design and live a well-intentioned life. And the second one is like Traveling Light, which will be out in August, is more about like, hey, you may need to design to and live a well-designed life. You may need to get to know yourself a little bit better. And so this is not, I don't want people to hear that they should. I don't ever want somebody to hear should, right? This concept for me is about becoming more of who you were created to be. And I think in our childhood trauma, oftentimes and remember, for the purposes of these conversations, trauma is something that happened to you that your brain can't make sense of. So if you didn't get invited to the sleepover in 6th grade, that can be traumatic, even if adults don't classify that as traumatic. And so with the things that happened to us in childhood, the messages we received, the social programming that we got, we're taught to, this is how our parents are going to teach us how to survive in this world. And that's wonderful because you have survived, but it may not serve you to become the best version of yourself. And I'm always like, I don't want you to become me. I want you to become you, and fully you, and not the you that is like going to fulfill your parents' wildest dreams of who that means you are. It's going to fulfill who you want to be. And sometimes that's scary for people. Sometimes they're like, there's a lot of pressure with that. I was just visiting with somebody yesterday, and they were like, they're 22, and they're like, I feel this pressure to choose what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And I'm like, well, you're not gonna. You're going to continue to pursue eudaimonia, which is fulfilling the purpose of your potential. I just love this. This is why we had to talk about this on a podcast, is because it's not pursuing happiness. It's not settling for just meh life. It's
Meh.
like there's a pursuit. There's a really great book by Chris Gillibo, and it's called The Happiness of Pursuit instead of The Pursuit of Happiness. And he proposes in that book that we are most happy when we are pursuing a worthwhile goal. And so he interviews people who have done everything from 200 marathons in a year. I don't actually know how you do that, and I read the book and I don't remember, to a mom in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that didn't have the resources to travel the world. And so she every week exposed her kids to a different country's food by ordering spices from Amazon and researching interesting dishes. So she traveled the world staying in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like, that was her pursuit, is how can I expose kids? And so this whole idea of eudaimonia is right up in there.
So there's 3 different elements that I found that sort of contribute to eudaimonia. Number 1, knowing who you are. Number 2, developing your unique potentials. And number 3, using those potentials to chase goals and to pursue something. And I think we can kind of talk about those 3 things a little bit individually. I want to talk about knowing who you are. As a young adult as well, not 22, but there is something really scary sometimes about about the when you get to that point and you're like, who am I? I I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not whatever, maybe you were in high school and your parents wanted you to do band or art or whatever. And so then you're like, yeah, I did that thing, but now that's not really who I am. Who am I? And I think in the spirit that like eudaimonia is a pursuit, it is not a destination. Knowing who you are is like technically, I don't know that you will ever fully know who you are because tomorrow you're going to wake up and you're going to be a little bit different than you were today. And we're always, that's okay. Like that's beautiful and wonderful. And so getting to know who you are, the whole like dating yourself idea, but like what do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? And when you find that if you're somebody who finds yourself in a spot where you don't know who you are and you don't know how to know who you are, or whatever baggage you've been carrying might have been standing in the way of like, well, I always did this because my siblings or my friends or my parents wanted me to do this, but I don't know that I love doing this anymore. Learn about that. Give yourself time and space to get to know who you are and to get to know what are the things that bring you pleasure, what are the things that make you like light up inside, that make you feel excited. And I think about what are the activities that like where time doesn't really exist, the things that you do and then you don't really realize what the passage of time is. That notice what those things are about yourself. Notice the things that are the opposite too, to get to know yourself. Like notice the things you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm really good. I'll my own personal example. I'm really good at math. Like I did calculus BC in high school. I am good at math. I don't like it. Period. The end. Like you want me to figure out math problems? No, thank you. I just don't like it. There are things in your life that you might be good at that you don't like, and that's okay. Know that about yourself. Get to know those kinds of things. And so pursuing knowing yourself is a great way to start embracing this eudaimonic
Eudaimonic.
eudaimonic life.
I just still want to go, no, eudaimonia. No, eudaimonia. Anyway, sorry, silliness. I would like to address one thing that I think holds people back from getting to know themselves. Many of us have an inner critic that is alive and well and have been yelling at us for a very, very long time. Bless it.
Bless your heart, as we say in the South.
Bless their heart, the inner critic. The thing is the inner critic has been doing a great job of keeping you alive. I know that because you're alive. But it also sometimes kind of has to lie to us to keep us alive and keep us on what it thinks is the safest path. And because of that, it can lie to us and tell us things like, I'm not enough, I don't belong, I don't have what it takes. And I've witnessed people be afraid to know themselves because they're afraid that the lies that they've believed about themselves, if they get to know themselves better, will be true. And they're like, well, what if I discover that I'm really not enough? Won't that be horrible? And so be aware that that is typical. And it doesn't make you fatally flawed. It doesn't mean that there's something so wrong with you. But what is wrong with me that I don't even know myself? That's fine. Eudaimonia is a journey. Like you just now woke up to the fact that you don't know yourself. Hallelujah. First step is deciding that you want to. That is one of the things that I would be freaking awesome that I had some people push back and say that the first step is not deciding. And I'm like, yes, it is. And they're like, no, because you got to figure out what you want to decide, where you got to get to know it. And I'm like, because the first step is deciding to look at your life critically and decide, where am I happy? Where am I not happy? Are the places, like what you were saying, that step of knowing yourself, if it feels scary, that's okay. That's okay. Do it scared. Do it scared. Just ease
I think that's the
way
point.
into it. ease your way into it and just start slow. Anybody that's watched Runaway Bride, and that is such a beautiful concept of she didn't know herself with learning what her eggs were. And so, near the end of the movie and during her character transformation, she sat down and she made eggs, fried eggs, boiled eggs, scrambled eggs, an omelet, all the things. And she tried them all and she thought about it and she sat with herself, but she had to make eggs in all the different ways to try them. And so you may have to do that as well. And that's
In
okay.
case you haven't seen Runaway Bride,
Oh, sorry.
the few words that she left out, the main character doesn't know what her favorite kinds of eggs are because her favorite kinds of, quote, air quotes, favorite kind of eggs is the same as whatever guy she's with. So then she goes through the process to figure out what is her favorite kind of eggs.
Sorry. Yep. Thank you.
No, that's okay.
Filling in the story instead of me assuming everybody's seen it. May have to put a link to that clip. Anyway, well, you'd have to watch a little bit. It's a good movie and it's a real fun way that she doesn't know herself. And that's why she continues to get engaged and leave the guys at the altar, is because she doesn't really know what she wants, doesn't know who she is. Thank you for filling in the gap. So that's the thing about knowing yourself, is that if that feels scary, there's nothing wrong with you. If that feels like, oh my gosh, Angela, it's normal for 22-year-olds not to know yourself. What if I'm 62 and I don't know myself? That's okay. Who cares? You have 60 years worth of data to mine to be able to say, what did I like? What did I didn't like? What have I tried? There's a whole, there's a test that you can take that is supposed to help you figure out what you would be good at for a job. And a lot of it goes back to your childhood to see, what did you like to build blocks? Did you like to color? Did you like to, whatever those things were that you just were always tinkering? I was always running a lemonade stand, always. When I learned how to code in 7th grade, we learned basic coding and the language of basic. I coded, the thing we coded to create was a lemonade stand. I mean, I have been interested in entrepreneurism since I was 8 years old. I probably would have been interested before then if anybody, if we had any kind of stability in our household. But that is just, so it's not weird to me that not only am I an entrepreneur, but it is scheduled to be on my tombstone. And because
scheduled.
It's what I've written. I wrote in the book. My epitaph.
Planned. What about planned, not scheduled?
Well, okay. I've written my epitaph. That's in Be Freaking Awesome, which you can still download for free on angelabelford.com.
Oh, I was just teasing on the word
but
scheduled versus planned.
I wrote on my epitaph when I was 26. That's what I wrote. And it's so interesting because it has stuck with me.
And if we don't know what an epitaph is, because I want to say it was Josh maybe who mentioned he just didn't know what it was and kept not asking for a long while.
The epitaph is the thing that goes on your tombstone, which, notice that that's what I started with. What is planned for my tombstone, or what is scheduled for my tombstone, or whatever verb I use that then you're going to make fun of me for. But is that what is scheduled on my, or what I plan to write on my tombstone, Holly, is scheduled is epitaph. For your death. Well, I'd love to pick it, but God's got other plans for me. So that. Yes, that's called an epitaph. Yes, Josh did. If you were an early listener to the podcast, you'll remember that Josh thought that was the little ball that hung beneath the back of your throat. So he could never understand why I was talking about the little hangy ball. What's the second thing, Sami? You said know yourself.
The second item that contributes to eudaimonia is developing your unique potentials. Thoughts?
Yeah. So number one, I can hear people's inner critic going crazy, going, I'm not unique. There's nothing special about me. I'm just normal. I'm just boring. I'm just whatever. And I'm going to be kind of should, if you talk about yourself using just a little bit of an indicator light that you might be discounting yourself. So perhaps maybe you don't need to do that.
I also think there's so many times people are oh, I'm good at this thing, but everybody is. No, literally everybody is not good at that thing. I just need you to know that whatever the thing you are good at, not everybody is good at it. Even when it's things like communication or
We
writing or
take for
reading or
granted how much we have learned about something and
yes.
assuming other people have learned that.
Yes. I have friends who their jobs, they're like, yeah, but like anybody could do my job. I'm like, but not really. You do your job and I could not come in and do your job. I just can't. And anyway, so you do have unique things and potentials, even if you don't think you do.
So I'll give you an example of that. Years ago, I've talked about Paula on the podcast a lot, but Paula had said was talking about what a good public speaker I am. And I was like, well, I mean, I was gifted. Like, and it's interesting. I changed my name when I was 13 to Angela, and then later, years later, learned that Angela means messenger of hope. And so, like, I think God planted that seed for me early on that's what I would be. But she gave the follow-up compliment after when I tried to discount her compliment, because that's what we all do, right? When we're still healing, is we discount compliments. But when she said, yes, God gifted you, and you worked really hard to develop your natural giftings. And I was like, oh, you're right. I did. At the time of this recording, I've been in Toastmasters for 14 years. Toastmasters is a public speaking club where you practice speaking and you get feedback. I've competed in lots of contests. And so I was like, oh, that is true. So something that came naturally to me, because I competed in speech contests actually back in 10th grade, something that came naturally, I worked at and I practiced and I practiced and I developed. And so, well, yes, like the other night, somebody said, no, you're really good at this. And I go, well, I would hope so. I mean, I've owned a marketing agency for 15 years. I've been in Toastmasters, of course, which I wasn't trying to discount the compliment, but I'm like, this is practice. That I wasn't great at it the very first time. Even when I started competing, I was good, but I wasn't great. And so there are other things that you're good at that you may not even think about. I will throw my husband under a bus right now because he loves to take pictures. Like one of the favorite pictures Sami and I have of ourselves is from 2012, and it looks like it'd be super fun to put it in the show notes, but we were at Niagara Falls and we're pointing at something, and literally the caption says, this is mom and I posing for this natural picture. So he has just for years, when we went to Niagara Falls, every day he had to download the card because he had 400 pictures every single day. Now, we did have some arguments back then because I said, you're not actually enjoying it. You're spending so much time behind the camera. Different. Now, for fun, he goes and takes pictures of food and of restaurants, and he does reviews online. And I think at the time of this recording, he has like his photos on Google Photos have over 15 million views. It's something he does for fun. He also won't let me figure out a way for him to make money on that. He continues to improve on his craft, but he doesn't. And I can't really throw rocks because I love to speak just when people need me to speak. So I also have done event planning. I've done practice event planning for 20 years. I don't like to do event planning for paid work because I like to be able to quit when people are mean to me. So whatever it is. Now, if you don't know what it is, can I offer the idea that you could practice things and consider volunteering, just like Barry practiced by just taking pictures of his food and posting them on the Google reviews. It's a little bit anonymous.
Or
And then,
taking the pictures of his family
yeah,
on vacation.
yeah,
You
he
know,
took those pictures, and that was kind of a volunteer gig. Sami and I both volunteered for nonprofit organizations where we've planned events. If there are things that you think you want to do, find a nonprofit event that you're passionate about or that even you're interested in, because that's another, oh, what's my purpose? What's my passion? Oh, crap. Just what are you interested in? What do you talk about when you go and visit with people, like you're sitting over coffee or having a drink with a friend? What are the things that interest you? Go volunteer to be able to develop those skills and develop those unique things about you. And if you don't know, listen for compliments. What do people compliment you on? Ask your friends, what am I good at? I'm just trying to get to know me. My friends know me sometimes better than I know myself. Ask people, what am I good at? I'm not trying to beg for compliments. I just am like really wanting to get to know myself. What do
I
you,
really
what do
like
you
this
get?
point about you can volunteer for something, because I think that, and even you can volunteer for it, you can do it for fun. There's such a like hustle side culture these
Hmm.
days that everything you are passionate about, you should turn into a money making venture. And I just don't know that that is always the healthiest response. I like to, somebody likes to crochet. Well, you should sell these things on Etsy. Or you could just crochet because you like to do it.
Hmm.
And those things that you're developing, you don't actually have to you don't have to develop your potential for a money-making venture.
Right.
You could do it. Like, so even, you're good at event planning. That's not new. You don't volunteer your time over all of these years so that one day you could turn this into an event planning business. Like, that's not the goal of that. The goal is that you like to do this thing, you have good skills at it, and whenever the need arises, you step in and help out whenever that
I,
makes sense for you.
I have a friend that she's retired and she was kind of bored. And so she likes to quilt. And she's like, I don't need a lot more quilts. And so she makes quilts and she donates them to like refugee organizations or shelters. Or I'm telling you, there's a lot of people on the planet that do need some extra blankets. And so
Mhm.
if I find extra fabric or fabric really cheap, I will buy it and I will give it to her because I know she had so much fun and she'll practice with different layout. Oh, check out this cool layout that I did, And so I've kind of asked her, hey, could I pay? No, she doesn't want to be paid for it. It's just something she does for fun. And now she's like finding creative ways to do it where it's not even like costing her a lot of money, like having friends. Hey, if you have old fabric or if you have old clothes, then she'll, cut those up into squares
Yeah.
and stuff. So yeah, it does not have to be money making because honestly, like we all need our joy tanks filled. Like, go fill up
Yeah.
some joy tanks. Not always your checking account needs filled. Sometimes when you get your joy tank filled, then it's easier to go and fill up your checking account.
I My experience with this is that when I was a child, we're talking about, what are the things you really enjoy doing? You did lemonade stands. I wrote for fun. I want to say that the first book I wrote was probably in like the first or second grade. I still have it. It's super precious. It was about a computer engineer, software developer who married a princess. This was my story about my parents, actually, because they were like, the characters were named some variation of Barry and Angela that was like
And Barry does
Bangela
call
and
me, yeah, Barry does call me a princess and has for years. So that's funny.
anyway, I've been writing
I
for a
have a
very
link.
long, long time.
I have a link
Yeah.
on my Facebook page to one of you won a contest. I'm like, oh, you can
Yes.
still get the link there. Anyway.
Yeah, if you search for Sami Belford, you can still find me on teeninc.com for my story about falling out of a tree, which was
Oh,
based on true events.
yeah.
Um, anyway, the other funny thing about this, I have a Rubbermaid tub at my house that is like my items from childhood that I am unwilling to part with. And it is so stinking heavy because so much of it is actually paper of things that I wrote,
Sure.
journals, notebooks, all sorts of things. Chris and I do have this long joke though that my childhood box is really heavy. Is that a metaphor that my childhood is really heavy? Like, it also has, so it's got paper, pretty much like notebooks and paper, and then glass dolls. And I'm like, yep, my childhood is heavy and fragile. So be very careful with the box that contains my heavy, fragile childhood. Um, anyway,
As your mom, I'm sure I should not be so entertained. I should be like, oh no, your childhood. I'm like, whatever. That's hilarious. Like,
it's
clearly.
probably most hilarious because it's not really true. Like, I don't really have a heavy and fragile childhood. In any case, writing, get us back on track. Writing has been a part of my life for a really long time. When I and then probably I went to college and I stopped. I like probably I kept journaling, but I did not write fiction or like any type of prose for a long while. I did group coaching exercise with Next Women here in Fayetteville. And it's probably a year and a half ago now, maybe 2 years. And part of it was rediscovering who you are, or like discovering who you are and what you love. And that's when I started writing again for fun. And there's something just so exciting for me to write without purpose. And like, I will write to describe the way a leaf looks to me, and I will write to describe the way the air feels around me right now. And it's like, it doesn't go in a story, it doesn't go in a thing, it just is descriptive writing for the sake of descriptive writing, because I really enjoy that. And so every now and again, like, I'll really be moved by something and I just want to write out and describe it. Um, I actually do think my very first time ever doing that was my grandma died when I was 11, dad's mom. I know, Angela, you know that, but not everybody else does know that. And I wanted to remember as many details as I could. And I have a notebook that's in the childhood box that is just like probably 12 pages of handwritten notes about what her home looked like. And it's just descriptive writing of walking up the stairs, the sound of the door as it opened, walking in, seeing the TV on the cabinet with the big Rubbermaid tub of VHSs that had tons of Disney movies. What did the blinds look like? What did the couch feel like? Just describing it. And so I have been doing that for a long time. Yes, I could monetize this. Yes, I could do copywriting. And yes, in my day job, I do writing. But I also don't let go of this thing that I really enjoy. Developing your unique potentials is what this relates back to. But I think that even just developing this thing for the sake of developing it, that is eudaimonia. Like,
That is eudaimonia. What's
it's literally
the third
it.
thing? What's the third thing?
Is using your potentials to chase goals. So this is probably where, like, even just developing my potentials for the sake of developing it, maybe not aligns with that. But when you think about other things, the event planning, the whatever your potentials, the things you're good at, the things you want to help with, pursue that. I also think I wanted to, it's a little bit of the sidetrack. When we talk about, the things that you are good at, not everybody is good at. There are also things that you care about that not everybody cares about. And I think that that is beautiful and wonderful. Not everybody can be passionate about every single issue that there is facing this world. And sometimes that's really hard, because when you're really passionate about something, it's hard that is not somebody else's like passion and calling to fix that thing. And also, it is okay. And in your pursuit of eudaimonia, not other people, we're not going to judge them. In your pursuit of it, go for those things. Use your talents and your skills to help those causes that are close to your heart. That's close to your heart for some reason. Somebody needs to care about people who are experiencing homelessness. Somebody needs to care about hunger. Somebody needs to care about
Dogs,
storm
rescues.
drainage issues in your town.
Yep.
Sorry, there are some very loud people in our town who
Affordable
care
housing.
about. Yeah.
Light
And so,
pollution. When in nature areas, nature preserve areas, that's a thing.
right. Care about the thing that you care about and go for it, and do the work that you can do.
We have
that.
a very passionate group of people that care about bike trails, especially mountain bike trails. And so they're just volunteers, and they go and they'll take land that that the city has gotten, and they will clear paths and clear things. And now we all benefit. The whole community benefits from their just joy of like creating this thing. But in the pursuit of goals, I think sometimes we think that a goal has to be like, we all fall back into the SMART goals. It has to be specific and measurable and actionable and realistic, the dumbest letter there, and timely.
Yeah.
Which, I rant about in both my books about that, what I think about SMART goals. There's a place for them, but in the term of goals, people will sometimes say to me like, yeah, I want to write a book. But I have all these things going, or, it'll take me 5 years. And I go, well, 5 years from now, where will you be? 5 years older? If you start now, then you will have made progress. It's like the people that like, oh, I was 70 when I decided I want to be a doctor, and it takes 6 years to be a doctor. Well, guess what? At 76, you're still going to be 76. And they're like, Grandma Moses didn't start painting till she was 70. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's so many. Harlan Sanders didn't use his Social Security check when he was 65 to start Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like, it doesn't matter. It just think about the idea of like, well, what are you going to do? Where will you be 5 years from now? Will you be glad that you started? Or will you still be going like, well, it's going to take me 5 years. So make some progress, man. I'm like a big, big believer in a drop of water on a piece of concrete. One drop over and over and over, the water's going to win every time. Every time. You are going to ruin your concrete. You're going to ruin your house foundation if that water just keeps. And it's the same way with our goals. One drop of water. And if you get discouraged, go look at water destroying concrete. One drop at a time. And you can make a difference. And it is the pursuit. That's what Eudaimonia is to teach us, is the pursuit. It doesn't actually, I love this idea. Brooke Castile teaches it. Some other people teach it. If you don't enjoy the work that it takes to get to a goal, you won't enjoy that achievement. Like, if this is what it takes to run a business and you don't like all the things involved in running a business, you can actually develop a very successful business and then hate it. You can say, especially people that believe, oh, once I get there, then I'll be happy. No, you won't. I think the only exception to that rule is possibly pregnancy, because pregnancy is not the same as raising a baby. You can hate pregnancy and still enjoy raising babies. But besides that, like, the thing that, like, if I want to, like, when I was a health coach and there were all these things I needed to do to like move up in the corporate success ladder or, whatever, and I didn't enjoy the work, the moment when you achieve a goal is fleeting. Like, you might enjoy it for a day, you might enjoy it for a week or a month, but then the next thing, you want to continue the pursuit. We want to be green and growing. And so if you don't enjoy the process of becoming, then you may not be pursuing the right goal. And so
I want to clarify the nuance here that I know you would agree with 100%. Enjoying the pursuit does not mean you have to enjoy every single thing.
No, 100%.
You want to develop a business. Angela loves entrepreneurism and having a business. And there are things about your business that you're like, oh, don't make me. I don't like this task. Like,
and yes, there are definitely tasks I pay people because I don't love that task. Absolutely. But in the early days, I had to do them until I could afford to hire somebody to help me with those process. So yes, you are absolutely right. Even being an author, there are so many parts of being an author that are just lonely and sad and hard. So yes, that is a great nuance. It's not to say that everything is like hunky dory, roses.
If you have a bad day, you should not do this goal. That's not what we're saying.
No, but in general, I had somebody who,
the way that she pitched it to me was thinking about like a scale and a balance, and what is the BS to benefits ratio, is what it was, and that at any particular day on your job, pursuing a goal, whatever it is, like, BS could outweigh the benefits. And when we look at like, okay, well, what about across the week? What's the average of that? Do we start to get a little more even? Maybe it was a really bad week, and so BS did win out. Maybe look at the month. Okay, benefits do outweigh. I had some bad days. I've had some hard times. When you look at the average of not just one day, not just 1 hour, but a week, a month, a quarter, a year, when BS starts to consistently outweigh benefits over time, that's a really good indicator. You probably might evaluate, is this the direction you need to be going? Not just one bad day, not just one hard thing.
Yeah.
Not just one bad project at work.
Yes, because one bad day gives you one good story, and 100 good stories make you interesting at parties.
I knew you were going there. Golly, these show notes are going to be so long. So many song references, movie references, book references.
But but you also, that is not to say that there are things that are hard work, like running a business, building a business. Those are hard work. do you feel fulfilled in the work that you're doing? You know?
Yes.
And so like I still 15 years after I started my marketing agency, 14 year, well, I'm starting year 15. I still enjoy. I have a client that is just about to open his new restaurant. I have another client who's been in business 35 years and is about to open a new division of their company. I love that. I love the energy of starting something new. I love my clients that have been in business for 15, 20 years and they're like, I need to reinvigorate. I need to freshen this up. I want to kind of zhuzh it up. I need to like rebrand. Like I still enjoy that process. I can tell you, like, if I don't have to use InDesign for the next like 8 weeks, it will be too soon. Like I can't say never
Only 8
anymore.
weeks.
I'm just saying I need a break. I need a break from InDesign because oh my
Well, and
gosh.
so you made a point a moment ago, though, that the work is satisfying and fulfilling. And I
Yes.
think that right there is some of the difference between eudaimonia and happiness is we
Mm.
are the pursuit of things that fill us, that bring life satisfaction. One of the ways that Socrates said it was justly living well. And
Mm.
so living in your purpose, living in your virtues, living as you are, confident in who you are, is different than happiness, which is a little bit more
Right.
um like it's
Yeah.
not that we don't want to be happy, but it is more fleeting. It is a more day-to-day, like hour to hour
Yes.
thing.
Well, and I
We're
just now
looking
am
for yeah.
thinking of the people that are that work in the homeless services system, and I can think of some of our case managers that have been doing it for 10 years, and the joy that they get and the fulfillment that they get from a really hard and hard job, like walking with people through the darkest days of their life, sometimes probably even I mean not sometimes, probably being a therapist, some of the things that people do for work is hard work and there's a fulfillment to it and there is
Yes.
a satisfaction. And I don't know that necessarily some of the case managers I'm thinking about, if we were to visit with them, do you come home feeling full of joy? I don't know that joy is going to be the word that they're going to use because they just do hard things. Now, I hope that they are also finding joy in lots of other things. The ones I know that are really good at it, that stay with it for a long time, actually find joy in a lot of the small things. Like they're apt to take a picture of a flower and really enjoy nature because they are looking for the joy in the small things. So we're not at all advocating that eudaimonia is like this vacuous thing that you never have to work hard and you never have to have bad days. It's not. It's about process. It's about fulfillment. It's about satisfaction. It is about a longer term thing.
Mhm.
It's not about just a daily, social media, what have you done for me lately kind of world. It's a worldview that is just more encompassing.
Yeah. And while it is longer term, I do think you could decide today, I want to embrace eudaimonia in my life and could start right now. Just decide, I want to get to know myself better. I want to develop who I am. I'm going to make a cheesy segue. You know how you could do that? You could pre-order Angela's book. That's right. We went there.
Woo! Yeah, we did. Well, because I'm
Pre-order.
sad that I didn't know about eudaimonia when I wrote the book, because otherwise it would be in there for sure. It's in there.
Exactly.
I just didn't know the word. We got enough Greek
So,
in that word in that book.
ooh, yeah, chapter 7 is very good, very full of the Greek. Hope you all love that and enjoy it. This fall, I'm just gonna give a little bit of a teaser. We're gonna be going through a lot of the content in the book, and we're gonna be talking about some of those different things. You don't have to have read the book to understand what we're talking about here on the podcast. So if books aren't your thing, maybe they're not, and you just want to listen to us talk about it. We will be here talking more about those things and talking more about Greek
Yeah.
words.
It'll be a
And if
little
you
bit
do
like
love books,
book club-esque this fall.
yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
chapter by chapter kind of a thing.
Um,
The Audible book will be available by then too. So people that
yes.
don't have time to sit in front of a book, they will also have options by the time August rolls around.
I love it. I love it. If you're interested in learning more about the Traveling Light book, you can go to angelabelford.com/traveling-light. That's the little dash symbol. Anyway, we're so excited for all of you. We're so excited for you guys give us such positive response on listening to the podcast. And we're really grateful that each of you listen and share with your friends and tell us what you think about it. So we hope you guys have a great rest of your week and go be freaking awesome.